I would like to begin with two questions today. Firstly, how many of you here aspire to study or work abroad? Next, how many of you here consider yourself patriotic? So these two questions do seem to belong together, right? But when we attempt to connect these two questions, we need to ask ourselves one more important question. What exactly is patriotism? The definition of patriotism might differ from person to person. One might say fighting for our country is patriotism. Other might say maybe using Indian products is patriotism. While yet another might say staying true to our roots is also a crucial part of patriotism. Let's come back to the first question. In the 21st century, as globalization advances, the scope for world-class education has been growing tremendously. More than 7 lakh students have been migrating abroad each year for the purposes of education and employment. Nevertheless, only 20% of this population returns back to its home country. Why? Primarily because they quickly grow new cultural roots. But how is it so easy for them to quickly grow new cultural roots? Is it because they've already been exposed to the Western culture for a prolonged period of time? Now, if you observe, the magnitude of Western cultural imposition can be very easily seen in our lives. I remember visiting my native once with a cousin of mine. A he who was pretty bred in a sophisticated gated community environment, which completely cleaned surrounding native outdoor games like Jimmy, Sandy, etc. In this another instance, just a few years ago, we had a chapter on traditional musical instruments in our syllabus. Sadly, most of my classmates were completely unaware even of the supposed to be famous Indian instruments like nursing, gatan, and even mridangam. But you know what the irony is? These instruments are being used regularly in Carnatic concerts even today. These are these broad variations. There are numerous such instances. Many of us do not know the legendary flatters that might lay a body and observe Prasad Saurasya while doing it is at a fingertip. These cotton goes, most of us wouldn't have even tasted it, while our tongues are well versed with the taste of pizza and burgers. We enthusiastically take up foreign martial arts like Kung Fu, Karate, Taekwondo, when our very own Kalari and Silapam are just walking away to ruin. Due to lack of proper representation or awareness. This dominance does not subside within the spheres of music, art, or poets, but extends to almost every aspect of our life, including living, fitness, education, and whatnot. Whoa! Why are we so enamored by everything Western? One major factor using this Western cultural imposition is the social media. All my childhood, I was not really exposed to much of social media activity, and it was just a few months ago that I actually joined Instagram. I was surprised to see the amount of classical dance games in my feed exponentially increased just within weeks. And amongst them were many so-called Insta dancers who took the graceful Bharatanatyam in inappropriate ways to be enlightened views. Many Indian youth today, as a result of being unaware, or rather unexposed to much of Indian art, are being tricked to believe that this is the true nature of our art form. All this realization certainly hit me, and since then one question has been nagging me. Almost 100 years ago, our ancestors were spilling their blood and sweat fighting against Western oppression. But did we really win? We managed to turn the foreigners out, but their culture still continues to dominate here. But is that a problem? Is the Western culture really that disadvantageous? Here, I would like to bring in the oldest living member of my family, my great-grandmother. And she currently 95 years old is able to get up early in the morning, have her food on her own, and satisfy most of her basic necessities without depending on another person. And how is it even possible? On the other hand, many of us today are facing the need to take up meditation just in our pocket. This merely illustrates the drastic change our lifestyle has undergone and its impact on our genetic makeup. This simply doesn't suit us. Regrettably, Western cultural imposition is indeed pulling us down. And now, I come to the irony. Today, there is a great surge of Indian food, culture and spirituality during the West. The West have begun to greatly appreciate the wealth and wisdom we possess, and it is a pity that we fail to recognize our very own riches. We, the youth of India, are being tricked by the falsified portrayals of Western culture and are being lured into a quagmire of identity. Of course, we have to adapt with the evolving world. We have to become global citizens. But what we fail to understand this fact, we can never really become global citizens by letting go of our place in the globe. We can never become true global citizens by washing off our India and our culture. It's about time that you and I realize what we are walking into and decide accordingly. But how do we bring about a change? This question reminds me of a quote which I read some time ago. It goes like, any change in a community begins from each individual, and any change in an individual begins with exposure. This summer, I had a lifetime opportunity to listen to Devotee Kanyakumari Amma's violin at Clearly Close Quarters. You see the people sitting there? That is exactly how we were seated, right next to the artist. And honestly, having never listened to violin concerts in person, I was genuinely mind-blown to you feel the music touch my soul like never before. That made me realize the amount of fabrication that has covered up a true Indian essence. And that realization pushed me to convey this to all of you today. It is high time that we start exploring the India outside of social media and try understanding our roots. We need to try tasting the local dishes of different regions, try supporting our native craft, try going to Indian classical music, dance and drama concerts. And feel the art, even if it cannot be completely understood in the beginning. We need to watch good artists perform our martial arts, it is true essence intact, and yes, we just need to try a pinch of Indian essence. Upon which, I am 100% sure we will witness each one of us transform into more self and culturally aware individuals. Thank you.